The development of psychosocial and technical skills for unemployed youth and women.
According to the INSEE, unemployment in 2017 it achieved a record of 1.6 million people. The unemployment rate for the youngest has increased more than threefold in 40 years, and among the most affected are the female population in France, which occupies a majority of the precarious jobs. The lack of qualifications and skill persists, and long periods of unemployment tend to become more frequent. The consequences on this is that having not acquired the right to technical skills and know-how skills, these audiences are far removed from the culture of work, which led to a deterioration of physical and psychological health conditions. These populations, under family, financial, and social pressures, are lowering these expectations, and those tend to a marginalization of people. These marginalized people no longer use employment services, and then it find themselves out of the radar, so off the radar. This is a real discouragement because these young people and women get suspicious of public institutions, of course, and do not feel able to integrate a society that seems inaccessible and not welcoming for them. Regarding this crisis, the Ministry of Labour, through the Skills Investment Plan, has launched the call for projects 100% inclusion, the Remobilization Factory. It aims to detect and to facilitate the experimentation of new solutions in the inclusion of the most vulnerable people in the country, with new approaches to remobilization towards employment, the development and the enhancement of the skills of these audiences. The RTR project, our project, has been selected as one of the winners of the 2019-2020 period and is led by a consortium composed of the social enterprise Chance, the Center for Interdisciplinarity and Research, the CRI, the Catholic Institute of Lille, the Laboratory of Collective and Artificial Intelligence, LICA, and the association Synergie Family. This National Action Research Project proposes to experiment with the new pedagogical approaches to mobilize, support, develop, and also enhance the skills of people who are far from employment. So the idea is to develop the cross-cutting and technical skills of each participant in order to support them towards sustainable employment and sustainable entrepreneurship. This project is being deployed in 3 territories in France: Lille, Roubaix, Île-de-France, and Aix-Marseille. Of course, we have a priority over the most vulnerable people, populations in each territory, looking and searching for an impact on young needs, so not in education, employment, or training, and women. The focus and objectives of the project are based on our innovative pedagogical engineering. So the general orientation focus or the founding idea of the RTR project is to reverse the paradigm of the labor market that must go to the individual while taking into account his or her identity, skills, resources, motivations, and vocations. So the aim is not only to create a link between the labor market and the unemployed or the needs, but also to build sustainable and fulfilling inclusion. For this, we propose a follow-up of the participants that we call talent, in the idea that each person has one or more hidden talents in order to be discovered. So this follow-up is provided by a follow-up mentor who we call revealers. So this is a kind of, this person would be both a revelator, revealer of these talents and of the dreams of the talent. In this context, we offer 2 different paths. So first, we have the Sustainable Job Pathway, which offers online coaching and collective activities to find a fulfilling employment, and the Sustainable Entrepreneurship Path, which also offers coaching and group activities to create its entrepreneurial spirit. So it's not only enterprise, but also the fact of being entrepreneurial with yourself. It is important to note that the talents are followed all the time, but all the times by their revealer, which he will make interviews, like weekly meetings, in order to see the progress of the talent. In this way, research is also involved in this direction with a follow-up of the skills of the talents. So here you can see our timeline. We propose a longitudinal cohort study. The overall objective of the research project accompanying this intervention is to assess the impact of the RTR intervention on various social, emotional, and technical skills. So we see well-being, employability, and motivations of the participants as well. For this, we will pass interviews, questionnaires, and tests. Of course, due to COVID-19, our data collection had to be adapted to online testing methods only, and this had an important consequences in data collections, particularly for the interviews. So looking at our timeline, in the pretest time, the participants will have the choice between two paths. So the path to sustainable development, either the path to sustainable entrepreneurship. Before starting his or her path, the participant answers two sociodemographic questionnaires and give a welcome biographical interview. Then the participant answers 7 online questionnaires and finally begins the path. Then we have the monthly measurements. So during the course of the path, the participant answers validated questionnaires and tests, supplemented by ad hoc questionnaires to specific to the workshops and follow by end of the month in reviews. So we see what they're doing at each month. Then we have the post-test time, and at the end of the course, the participant again answers the 7 questionnaires presented at the beginning of the course. And then she passes a farewell biographical interview at the end. Then there is a follow-up time that 6 months later we want to contact this talent in order to re-interview him or her in order to make a follow-up biographical interview. So the data will be analyzed to understand the evolution of participants following their participation in the project in order to assess the impact of the intervention on the development of social, emotional, and technical skills. So I will show you the variables and the instruments we chose. And we arrive into the results part, which has been impacted. For this project, the results that have been most exploited so far are related to learning in the field. In particularly, the need to readjust research objectives to fit into the objectives of the action research, which is not the same thing. We have seen the impact of carrying on a rigorous methodology, or more purist methodology, as some colleagues call it, on the project. So we needed to be creative and flexible. We needed a more permeable methodology. For example, for pre-test, to let them do the test with delayed times and not exactly at the same time as we are supposed to in academic research. On the other hand, there is the concern of the disconnection between research or academic research and the real field, the real life. This is historical, and people are used to think that research and reality of the field are absolutely unlinked. So we researchers have no idea of what's going on in real life. And it was very interesting then to conduct research in this action research project. Very interesting. So to work with this issue, for example, we proposed at the beginning to include our colleagues that work in the field into the research approach. So we trained the revealers in the subject of research and particularly in data collection through the biographical interviews. So it was them who conducted the welcome biographical interviews. In this context, we did the work together, we trained them, but then we listened to the first interviews, and sometimes, for example, they were too short or too long, so we sent them feedback in order to allow the revealers to let the talents express themselves freely, which is something that some social researchers already know how to do. And it worked very well, actually, it worked perfectly. So also we had another issue. The response rate of the interviews at the beginning was very slow, of course probably due to the containment, so thanks COVID. Not everybody were comfortable with technology and conducting interviews via video conferences. So the same goes for the pre-test. Sometimes they had problems connected to their platform and to respond to different tests. So technology, it was great, but it was not the best for conducting the interviews specifically. So faced with this crisis of data collection, still the Marseille team reacted more quickly than the others. It was great. So it provided most of the interviews for the launch of the program with 31 interviews in 2 months. Nevertheless, of course, at the beginning, not all the interviews were usable because of the technical problems of sound during the video conference interviews. Then we have the Paris team that followed with 21 interviews. The preliminary results of the interviews showed that the themes most stated by the talents are the need for support for the creation of their activity and the need for socio-emotional support. That's very important, and there's a big need there. Of course, these are only very preliminary results because due to problems related to COVID again, data collection and analysis have been severely disrupted and then they were delayed. So more complete results of the interviews, as well as the pre-test and the links that we can make with them, are planned for mid-September. So I'm very sorry for this because I promised results by this date, but this global crisis has affected all spheres in our work, and of course I imagine all around the world, and I imagine it's the same for you. So, as a conclusion, much remains to be done to see the final results and the impact of the interventions on the population. One of the most valuable learning aids is that an action research project needs constant innovation and adaptation in order to be implemented, and that all actors in a consortium must be aligned with the same objectives in order to achieve the project's objectives. If there is enough time, I will let you watch the presentation video of our project. It is in French, but I added subtitles in English on YouTube. And otherwise, you can click on the YouTube link that is here and you can watch the video yourself. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope this was interesting for you.
L'avenir n'est jamais que du présent à mettre en ordre. Fais de ton rêve ta réalité.
Mettre la lumière sur les talents cachés, c'est l'enjeu du projet RTR. Nous venons ici, à leur rencontre, au pied des immeubles. Notre objectif, qu'ils nous fassent confiance, qu'ils se fassent confiance, pour savoir ce qu'ils veulent faire dans leur vie. Le RTR, c'est un projet 100% inclusif, qui permet de révéler les talents cachés.
Je veux me faire entendre. J'ai des envies, j'ai des rêves. Je peux le faire.
RTR, c'est une équipe de 70 personnes et 5 institutions différentes qui sont réunies autour d'une conviction. Tout est possible quand on se connecte à nos rêves. Alors on va aller à la rencontre de 1500 personnes exclues de l'emploi pour aller découvrir leurs talents, leurs rêves et les transformer grâce à 2 parcours d'apprentissage pour soit créer son entreprise, soit trouver son emploi. Il s'agit de devenir artisan de sa vie.
À mon savoir-faire, je veux pouvoir m'y fier, en être fier, que ce soit ce à quoi on puisse m'identifier. J'aspire à pouvoir le clamer, sortir des classes et crier en gardant dans mes cahiers mes phrases. J'ai trop longtemps été esclave condamné à me blâmer.
RTR propose un parcours de création d'entreprise inspiré de la culture des makers. Il s'agit d'apprendre à réparer, à recycler avec toutes les technologies innovantes d'aujourd'hui pour créer une société qui soit apprenante, coopérative et éco-responsable.
Pour moi, le travail, c'est vraiment l'amour du geste, pouvoir réparer quelque chose qui n'est plus en état. Donc je pense qu'aujourd'hui, on vit dans un monde où on doit l'être en relation avec notre environnement. Donc bien évidemment que le travail, ce que nous on fait, reflète directement sur la société et indirectement aussi. D'où l'importance de pouvoir recycler, réparer et apprendre à recycler, à enseigner à recycler, à réparer des vieux objets et donner une nouvelle vie à quelque chose qui a déjà vécu.
Nous proposons un parcours d'accompagnement personnalisé, riche d'ateliers, d'expériences immersives, de rencontres inspirantes, de formation et d'incubation de projets pour révéler les dons et savoirs des talents cachés.
Je suis organisée et j'aime élaborer des plans et des projets. Pour passer du rêve à la réalité, j'ai besoin d'outils pour être l'architecte de ma vie.
Nous voulons faire bouger les lignes du monde du travail et permettre aux talents d'émerger et de décider du projet professionnel qui leur ressemble. Nous proposons donc un programme qui allie activités digitales, coaching personnalisé et mise en réseau pour les accompagner jusqu'à leur objectif.
Nous sommes dans une démarche de jardinier de l'initiative. Nous voulons faire pousser les choses, les connecter. Nous voulons créer un réseau d'initiatives que nous voulons tous ensemble jardiner pour relever le défi de l'espoir et de l'espérance et lutter efficacement contre toutes les sources d'exclusion. Donc, rejoignez-nous dans ce projet, vous y aurez votre place et votre rôle.
Tout le monde a un talent, voire plusieurs talents à exploiter, mais ça, on ne le dit pas ni à l'école, ni dans les sessions de formation. Et quand on s'en aperçoit, c'est génial. C'est important de se donner de la valeur, sinon on ne peut pas se lancer dans un chemin professionnel comme ça en fait. C'est très important d'avoir la notion de sa propre valeur.
Le projet RTR est financé dans le cadre du plan d'investissement